Lena had always believed that love was supposed to feel like a warm summer rain, surprising, gentle, and nourishing. But the moment she met Daniel, it struck her more like a storm, fierce, uncontrollable, and impossible to ignore. They met in a cramped bookstore in Prague, both reaching for the same copy of The Little Prince in the English section. Their hands brushed. She looked up. His eyes were the color of dusk, not quite blue, not quite gray. The connection was immediate, electric. "I'm sorry," Daniel said, flashing a nervous smile. "You go ahead." "No, it's fine. You can't take it." She hesitated. "Actually, I've read it a dozen times." "So have I," he laughed. "It just reminds me of home." "Where's home?" "Boston," he said. "But lately?" "Nowhere, really." She tilted her head. "That's a strange answer." "It's a strange life," he replied. They got coffee after that. Then dinner. Then they walked across the Charles Bridge as the city lights reflected on the Vltava like candlelight on water. He was supposed to leave in 3 days. He stayed for 3 months. They were inseparable. Every day was filled with laughter, late-night piano sessions in his Airbnb, and spontaneous poetry scribbled on napkins. They spoke of books, art, their wounds. Lena opened up about her father's passing, how she'd taken a year off her architecture studies to help her mother. Daniel admitted he'd run away from the expectations of his family's prestigious law firm. One night, they lay on the rooftop of Lena's apartment, wrapped in blankets, staring at the stars. "I don't want this to end," he whispered. "Then don't let it," she replied. He kissed her like a promise. She believed him. Reality crept back in like fog through a broken window. Daniel's visa expired. His savings dwindled. He flew back to Boston, promising to return in a month. Lena waited, counting days, then weeks. He called every night at first. Then less. Then came the excuses: job interviews, family obligations, bad internet. When she finally flew to Boston 6 months later, the warmth in his eyes was dimmed. His apartment was neat, distant. His mother accidentally called her Lisa 3 times. Daniel laughed less, worked more, apologized often. "I'm just overwhelmed," he told her one night. "Being with you feels like freedom, but everything else feels like a cage. So choose us," Lena whispered. "I'm trying," he said. But he wasn't. Not really. The fights started. Long distance turned from longing to blaming. She felt forgotten. He felt trapped. "I can't build a life with someone who isn't even sure where he stands," she shouted once during a call. "And I can't be with someone who expects me to abandon everything," he snapped back. The call ended. Silence followed. Days became weeks. Lena tried to bury herself in work. Daniel buried himself in silence. One day, a message came: "I think we need space. Maybe we weren't meant to last after all." She read it a dozen times. Then she blocked his number. Time passed, as it always does. Lena graduated, designed her first building, moved to Berlin. Her heart healed in jagged pieces, stitched by friends, work, and the quiet kindness of strangers. She dated someone for a while, a kind photographer named Eli, but her laughter always felt a little delayed. Her smiles rehearsed. Daniel's life, as she'd hear from mutual friends, went on to. He became a lawyer, opened a small firm. No wife, no long relationships, just headlines of success and whispers of solitude. They didn't speak for 3 years. Until one day, on a rainy afternoon, she received a letter. Handwritten. "I don't know what I'm hoping for, but I still think of you. Every time I see stars. Every time I hear your laugh in a dream. I was scared. I still am. But if you're willing, I'd like to find you again. Even if you're 1,000 cities away." She didn't reply for a week. Then she booked a flight to Boston. He waited at Logan Airport, holding a single daisy, just like the ones she'd keep on her windowsill. He looked older, tired. But when their eyes met, something inside her unlocked. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi," she replied. They didn't kiss. Not yet. Instead, they walked through the city like ghosts revisiting a past life. They talked. Cried. He apologized, not with flowers or poetry, but with truths. "I was weak," he said. "You deserved certainty. I gave you questions." "And now?" she asked. "I still don't have all the answers," he said. "But I know I want to try. No more running." Love the second time wasn't fireworks. It was quiet sunrises, therapy sessions, late-night cooking, tears, patience, and hard conversations. He moved to Berlin for 6 months. She visited Boston more often. They rebuilt, one moment at a time. One morning, over coffee, he reached into his coat pocket and handed her a familiar book, The Little Prince. Inside, scribbled in the margins, were memories of their love story. On the last page, a single line, "Let's write the next chapter together." She looked up, tears brimming. "Yes," she whispered. "Let's." Rebuilding their love was not a straight line. There were days when Lena questioned if Daniel would ever fully open up, and nights when Daniel worried Lena had outgrown him. In those moments, they returned to the rooftop, now in Berlin, where stars always seemed to whisper reminders of where they'd been. They took a road trip through Europe. In Vienna, he proposed the idea of starting the creative legal architecture consultancy. In Florence, she sketched their dream home on a napkin. In Lisbon, they argued over nothing and made up before dawn. Every city was a note in the new symphony they were composing. Lena found an old wooden box in a flea market, and they made it a ritual. Every Sunday, they write letters to each other, raw, honest, even when angry, and lock them in. On their anniversary, they'd open and read them. The box overflowed with hope, fear, forgiveness, and growth. One letter, written by Daniel after a particularly hard week, read, "There are still days I feel like I don't deserve you. But then you smile, and I remember, love isn't about deserving. It's about choosing. And I choose you, every damn day." The decade passed. They married in a small ceremony in Prague, just them, 2 witnesses, and the same Charles Bridge behind them. Daniel carried a copy of The Little Prince in his pocket. Lena wore daisies in her hair. They had a daughter. Her name was Elara, after a moon of Jupiter, because Daniel always said their love felt like orbiting something infinite. At night, when Elara would ask them to tell the story of how they met, Lena would smile and say, "We reached for the same book and found the same future." And sometimes, when the stars were out, Lena and Daniel would sit quietly on the balcony, fingers intertwined, hearts still tender, still choosing. Because some loves don't burn out. They just shine differently. Launching their firm brought passion and pressure in equal measure. Long nights blurred into early mornings. Lena chased city permits while Daniel drafted ironclad agreements. Some days, they barely spoke except through sighs and forwarded emails. But one evening, during a thunderstorm, they danced barefoot in the office kitchen. That night, Lena whispered, "Let's never forget to be us." Still, months later, after a GrunaLink project collapse, Daniel packed a bag. Lena found him at the airport, the same look of lost fear in his eyes. But this time, she took his hand, opened his suitcase, and placed the Little Prince inside. "Come home with me," she said. He did. When Daniel's father suffered a stroke, they flew to Boston. The trip unearthed pain, old judgments, expectations, silence. Daniel's mother still spoke in clipped smiles. His father, though weakened, gripped Lena's hand one afternoon and whispered, "You gave him the courage I never had." The visit mended more than expected. Daniel spent long mornings reading by his father's bedside, while Lena sketched buildings from the hospital garden. On the flight home, Daniel rested his head on her shoulder and said, "You make me want to be more than my past." They married again. Symbolically. On the rooftop of their old Berlin apartment. The sky opened moments before vows. Guests scrambled for umbrellas. Lena stood soaked in her dress. Gurgling. Daniel kissed her, rain clinging to their cheeks like tears. "It started with rain," she said. "It should begin again with rain." That night, they slow danced under stormy skies, laughter echoing through puddles. Each year, a letter. Lessons like, be brave, even when your voice trembles. Real love isn't perfect. It's persistent. At 18, Elara opened the box and read all night. At dawn, she kissed her parents' foreheads and whispered, "Thank you for choosing each other, and me." They aged. Not perfectly, but together. In their 60s, they visited Prague once more. The bookstore was gone. The bridge, eternal. Lena traced her fingers along the road. "If love had a form, ours would be a map," she said. "Full of detours. But every path leads to you." The star appeared. Then another. And Daniel took her hand. "Let's never stop beginning."